Right, so I'm doing the intro at the end this time, and changing this over has literally been one of the most challenging projects I've done for a long time. Everything that could go wrong did. But anyway, let's get into how to change a fuel tank. So under here we have a fuel tank that has got a film of diesel over it, but we recently came back from holiday and found a small puddle underneath it, so time to change it. So the first thing we need to do is to get the tow bar off the back of the Land Rover. There's one bit. Find out that these are all seized up solid. The reason we had to take the full tow bar off was the angles stopped the fuel tank dropping out of the gap. However, undoing the nuts was somewhat challenging. Some of them had wasted away so much that they weren't really bolts anymore, and they were just rusted into the holes and sealed everything in, so we had to cut them out. So I'm using a little trick here where you join two spanners together by putting the ring through the open end of another spanner. It makes it longer, allows you to put more force through a bolt. It does require a bit more room to do it though, but it is a quick way of making your spanners longer. And now that they're all off, all the nuts are undone, that should just come off. That's for another day to fix. And so there's a whole load of bits that all need to come off. There's a load of nuts and wires and hoses that need to come out. And all of them are sea solid. They're all rusted. There's a good chance this fuel tank has been on the car for at least 20 years. And considering the car's 26 years old now, it's probably been on there. So before undoing the bolts on the fuel tank, I did actually try and drain it. I didn't use the drain plug because I didn't trust it. I didn't want to drain all the sediment out the bottom of the tank as well. So we siphoned it all out. What was left of it, I think there was about 15 litres or so left in there. And then we undid all the bolts and took the jack away. And it practically self-supported on itself under there, so we had to use a crowbar to help get it out as well. And I left the hoses, because there's still a little bit of fuel left in it, so I left the filler hoses still attached, and they just required a bit more wiggling to get it all out. There's a pipe on top of the fuel tank, which is the fuel return from the injector pump, and this was seized solid on there to the point that I was starting to twist the pipe that was going into the fuel tank when I tried to undo it, and therefore decided to cut the fuel line with the intention of putting the fitting, once I got it to a vise, back in, but realised that it was so corroded I needed a whole new fuel line as well. So this was one of those extra parts that I needed to get for this project. Okay, so this is the new fuel tank, and it's turned up in a less than ideal condition. Oh, I don't know if you can see. Let's have a look. And it is scratched quite a lot all over the place. I suspect this was done before it was even packaged to get to me. So I was already planning to do this, so it's not such a big issue, but I'm going to repaint the whole thing. This has got a very thin spray coat of something on it, but it's not very thick. And therefore it will last a little while, but the minute you hold moisture against it for any length of period of time, it's gonna the water will get through and just damage the tank, especially on the scratched areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint over it with this stuff, which is an exterior gloss paint. It takes forever to dry, so but once it's dry and cured, it's a very hard, robust paint, I found. So for something like this, where we're going to paint it and then just put it on the car and leave it, it doesn't matter how long it takes to dry. It's dry in about 24 hours. It cures in about a week or two. Curing is when it goes properly hard. So it's a far more robust paint than whatever is on this, especially with the guard, because the guard sits over this area here and it forms a very narrow layer which ultimately fills with mud because it's a Land Rover. So we're going to make sure it's got lots and lots and lots of protection from rust and moisture on it. Not to say it won't do it with this on it as well eventually, but this will just help it make it last a lot longer. And we can get rid of all of the stickers. So because this is already painted, it doesn't need masses of sanding. I'm not trying to get a good improved finish on it, so it just needs a key for the next coat of paint. So we're just going to rub it down with some 240, which is arguably a little bit fine, but I think for what we need it to do and how sticky I know that paint is, it will be fine. I'm not going to make you watch all of this, so it's going to be done. Okay, so I've sanded both of these down, this one and the tank guard. It's all been sanded down. It needs wiping down, so we're going to wipe it down with blue paper towel and some thinners, paint thinners. They don't leave a residue on the surface, so it won't stop any other paint sticking. And yeah, so we're going to do that now. I've checked that the thinners don't damage this paint surface. I've already done a little test patch, and I've also opened all of the doors, and there's a good through draft of air so that I won't have too many thinner fumes around me. And this way it should pick up most of the dust. And although it's going to make it look like I haven't sanded it, I know I have. You can see how much dust is coming off. Okay, so this is all clean. Been sanded and cleaned. And there's very little muck coming off on the gloves, so now's the time. We're just going to brush it on. You get a nice thick coat with a brush. And we're going to do some on the table, and then we're going to transfer it over here where it's hanging. The only problem is when it's hanging, it swings. So we're going to do as much as we can on the table. I'm going to put it on reasonably thick. You don't want to put it on too thick, otherwise it'll crack, but you certainly want a reasonable coat. Been a while since I've had a look at this, hence all the dust, but got the old one out, and it turns out that all these bits are basically corroded into the old tank. It is that rusty, so we're going to replace everything. That goes on there. In there. And there's this thing, this locking ring, which I presume goes in and twists, and there's some special tool for it that is £50 to do that. So we're not going to use that because I don't have it. I refuse to spend £50 on one tool that's going to get used for literally one thing. We are going to use a chisel and a hammer, and we're going to gotta go, what way are we gonna go? Down? Down's pretty easiest. there's a little stop. So I was a bit concerned that these holes didn't line up, but actually they're squidgy all on the inside, so they'll stretch and move to fit where they go. Got that. This jobby here, obviously this bit here needs to point at the back, down this groove, and then that goes in there like that. And then the only other place that diesel will be able to leak out of this with this seal is on the threads of the screws. And I've got this stuff, which is proof against leakage of diesel, which is ideal for this. It's a bit of an old tub, but it's still good further in. Just have to wheel the paintbrush around and get some good bit. And we're just going to pop that on the thread of some of these bolts, because they're going to be a little long, but these are the only stainless bolts I have that are in M5, so although I would like a hex head, we're going to go with an Allen head on the basis that these are probably never going to come out again. So we're just going to put a little bit like that on there, and then pop that in to a hole. And we're not going to do these all up fully yet, because I want to make sure that I'm not tweaking the rubber gasket in any way. Just got it on the camera. Oh well. And on my trousers. Right, so I've got these in here. I've got them through the sealing washer rubber thing. I just want to make sure that they're not pinching the rubber through it with the thread in any way. So I'm just going to lift it up around all the bolts just to make sure it's not gone down into the threaded holes. It seems fine. And we're just going to do these up now to as tight as I can. And because you've been given a star pattern, I'm going to presume you should do them up in star formation to make sure the plate goes down flat, like you would your wheel nuts. So just do them all up loosely first. Get all the threads all the way down. And now at that stage we go to the short side and start tweaking until it is tight. You should remember that you don't just do this once, you go around the whole loop twice, because the first one will loosen up because the others have pushed the whole thing down a little bit further. So you always want to just tweak them all again after the first pass. I'll do the first one again just to make sure, yeah, that's fine. Cool. All done. All of the things have been painted in here that I can't get to in the future when the tank's back in, and all the rust cleaned up. I've run a new fuel hose, return fuel hose, because I cut the last one because I couldn't get it off the tank, and the old fuel pipe's still there, but it should be okay. Now all we need to do is get the tank back in. Okay, so this is the order that it should go in. You should have the metal plate, some bolts, rubber washer, and a little metal sleeve, and then the fuel tank goes in this bit, and then all of this stuff goes on the bottom once you've lifted the tank into place. Okay, so for this, to stop these being pushed up whenever it's the fuel tank's put on, you have to bend this little tab over, and I can't be bothered to go all the way back to the workshop to do it, so we're just going to wedge it in here and hammer them flat, and hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on. So, and then this bit goes all the way under here. Oh. Nope, come back. And there's the bracket there. So hopefully I can keep in shot while doing this one-handed. And then you've got another little tab here. Here. And you want to bend that over this plate. And that stops the whole thing being pushed up when you put the fuel tank on. You might have to pipe a little bit. Okay?
Yeah.
You alright?
Yeah, which way are we going?
I've still got to go your way, about 3-4 inches. I can't see what it's hitting.
It's the fuel in pipe is going to get, there's like a little wiggle and it's going to
Yeah.
go into the Jubilee and around the corner. Okay.
Oh, nice and safe. Right. So, can you clip this pipe into this clip?
I can't see anything.
Okay, can you take the weight of the tank that's on my face then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's in. Yeah, okay. And then gently slide all this up. Make sure that this way should
You've got
to go up. I can't push on. Oops, which fingers? Got the nuts on at this point.
I know, but it's not.
Okay, which way do you want to wiggle it? I
I
can't.
can't see it. I can't fucking see anything.
Well, you've got more of a chance of seeing it than I do.
I think I must go that way a bit towards you.
Hold on, I can't do towards me because it's. Oh. Right, I'm just going to pop that in there. You have to be careful not to wiggle it too much because it'll fall off. Yeah, but you can at least relax a bit on that end. Right. Come down if you can. Oh, the guards do not attach that side, is it? Right. So the bolt doesn't fit in the hole. The slot is too narrow. We need a drill. We've got an 8mm drill bit in it. And this is where it bites and rips my arm off. Yeah, technically it's already in, I just need Problem is, we're drilling into an oblong hole. Nah, should have put safety glasses on. Can you get the paint red? Yay. Right, got them in and got these two in with the thing possibly looking like that. And even with all the wood and stuff holding this up and moving around as we're doing it, there's a bit of scuffing there. There's 2 scratches there from a nail in the wood, and there's one over here where I think I slipped with a chisel, and the rest of it, the paintwork is absolutely fine. which is proof that the paint is actually pretty good. So last bit is to connect this little wire and then connect the fuel line. Right, so the next bit is that this pipe goes onto that black nubbin in there that's just behind the pipe, and by the time my arms and possibly my head are in that, you won't be able to see a thing, so we're just going to do it. Right, so there's the two hoses and the two bits of pipe they've got to line up onto. It probably would have been easier to line this hose up before getting the fuel tank in, but we had such issues getting the tank in that worrying about this was very much one of the last things on my brain. So we're now going to struggle a little bit to get it in, but it should be fine. Again, this is in such an awkward position. Don't really have anywhere to put the camera. So this is the last bit of this before hopefully putting fuel in it. But we will see shortly. Okay, so I took all the fuel out of the old tank and put it in there. But I'm not entirely convinced the paint on the inside of that has stayed a did over the years. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter the fuel as I put it in the tank, and this is what I'm going to use, because what I think is in there is paint. So it's going to be like sheets and small particles. So we're going to use a Brillo pad or a Scotch pad, cut the fit in there and act as a bit of a funnel. We'll probably dribble a bit, almost definitely, but we'll put some stuff down to catch that. And then we're going to try and get fuel to the engine again. Whoop. The nozzle will be really handy. And so, the reason for a bit of mess is that I didn't want that to go into the new fuel tank. But everything is covered in diesel now. Right, I got the old one out, I put the new one in, the Land Rover works. If you want to see more random projects like this, hopefully they are slightly less exhausting, I will see you next week. And please remember to subscribe and like the channel and all that stuff. But now it's time for tea. I'll see you next week. Bye! Everything that could go wrong did. That includes cutting fuel lines that wouldn't come out, to getting parts that were scratched, to not being able to get under the bonnet because the bonnet release catch broke, to dropping the camera and breaking the camera. Each thing just seemed to add a few more days of waiting for parts to turn up, or like bits like this not coming out, and so having to order more parts. And it's been one of those Land Rover projects that's just gone on and on and on and on. And although it can be an easy job, this particular time wasn't.